Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayom Vishnupada Paramahansa Privrajacharya Stotra Satta Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai ki jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi ki jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Gaura Premanandi, ISKCON Silicon Valley Yatra ki jai, Harinam Sankirtana ki jai, Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. Is anybody watching online? Hare Krishna, welcome. Just in time for Srimad Bhagavad Gita class. And tonight we're reading from chapter 7, verse number 5. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, we're in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita, entitled Knowledge of the Absolute. And the verse we're reading, or we'll start with reading, is verse number 5. It should be coming up on the board soon, but you have a book also. Okay. Either way. Page number 328. Apareyam itas tu anyang apareyamitas tvanyang prakritim vidhi me param prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho Jiva Bhutang Mahabaho Yaya Idam Dharyate Jagat Yayedang Dharyate Jagat. Thank you. Apareyam mitastvanyang Prakriting vidhi me param Jiva bhutam mahabaho Yayedang dharyate jagat Apareyamitastvanyang Prakriting vidhi me param Jiva bhutang mahabaho Yayedang dharyate jagat Apareyamitastvanyang Prakriting vidhi me param Jiva bhutam mahabaho Yayedam dharyate jagat. You chant. Apareyamitastvanyam Prakritim vidhi me param. Jiva bhutang mahabaho. Yayedhang dharyate jagat. Word meanings. Apara, inferior. Iyam, this. Itaha, besides this. Tu, but. Anyam, another. Prakritim, energy. Vidhi, just try to understand. Me, my. Param, superior. Jiva bhutam, comprising the living entities. Mahabaho, O mighty armed one. Yaya, by whom. Idam, this. Dharyate, is utilized or exploited. Jagat, the material world. Translation. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Please repeat. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Here it is clearly mentioned that the living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord, and it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. It is due to this energy, the superior energy, that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful, as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87-30 as follows. Aparimita druvas tanubrito yadi sarva gatas tarhi nashasyateti niyamo dhruva netaratha ajani cha yan mayang tad avimucha niyantri bhavet samam anujanatang yad amatang mata dushtataya. I don't know that verse. I should memorize it. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Hare Krishna, welcome. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. That chapter 87 is entitled Prayers by the Vedas Personified. So these are the Upanishads that are glorifying Krishna talking to him this way. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity or power. Let me read that again. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. Ekala Ishvara Krishna, Ara Sarva Pritya. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity or power. Quality is the same, but not quantity. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy, matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains the stage called mukti, or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter, and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitang Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitangscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of the material inferior nature. That's very clear, isn't it? Krishna makes things very clear.
What are the qualities we have similar to? So here it says there are some qualities. We are equal in qualities but not in quantity. So what are the qualities we have?
Well, first of all, Satchidananda, eternity, knowledge, and bliss. That's our real quality, even though under the spell of false ego, we're not experiencing that life in that consciousness in that way, because our consciousness is polluted by contact with matter. In the Nectar of Devotion, which is a summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami, Rupa Goswami describes 64 qualities of Krishna, of which 4 qualities not even Lord Narayan can manifest. Only Krishna has these special 4 qualities. He has an especially beautiful form, more beautiful even than Lord Narayan. He has especially beautiful pastimes and especially loving devotees. And also, he has a flute. He plays a flute. This is a special quality of his, that he has this transcendental flute. Other people may play flute, but not this flute. So, aside from those 4 qualities, there are 5 qualities that Lord Narayan has, but even Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma don't have. And I don't remember them all. He's all-pervading, he's the Supreme Controller, there's different qualities. And then there's 5 qualities, I believe, that Lord Shiva and even Lord Brahma may manifest, but the jivas generally don't manifest. Although Lord Brahma is an empowered jiva, so because of his position as the controller of the universe and the guna avatar, the mode of passion, he can manifest some of these qualities. But the 50 qualities are described, and I don't remember them all. I mean, you can read them, it's clever, poetic, There's also sometimes it's described 26 particular qualities that pure devotees possess and show. But these qualities are qualities that Krishna manifests, but also the devotees may manifest. But whereas Krishna manifests them in full and completeness, the living entities cannot manifest them in full and completely, because they're his energies, they're small expansions of him. There's 2 kinds of expansions. One kind is called vibhinangsha. They're small, they can be covered by Maya. And the other kind is called swangsha, and they're his own, like, identical expansions. And so all of this is explained, all of these things are explained very clearly in books like Chaitanya Charitamrita and other books that explain this whole theology. It's really magnificent, and it's really our mission in this Hare Krishna movement to reveal these things to the rest of the world. Most people are thinking, oh, religion is a private thing, you've got your religion, I've got my religion, and let's not make waves and shake the boat. And we don't want to make waves with anyone, but we want to discuss, well, what does your religion say about these things and those things? The fact is that this Krishna consciousness is really it's the most full scientific explanation of who Krishna is and what the world is, the world we see. The introduction, or not the introduction, but the preface to Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam says that even though we've made strides in technology and communications and transportation, and that was even before the internet. Now they're always talking about how the world is flat and we're all a global village and things. Even then they were starting to talk, they had the United Nations. But there still was quarrels, even over seemingly unimportant things. And there are quarrels. All the time I see devotees even are quarreling about things because we're losing the main point. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to solve this problem of quarrels by supplying what's missing, which is a common goal. But not just any made-up common goal. Like the Nazis, I think, Mein Kampf or something, Adolf Hitler said, and the people are suffering, they can endure suffering if they have a reason to suffer, but the politicians aren't giving them a reason. They need a mythology that they can believe in, the idea of the national ideal of Teutonic, whatever, This is an imaginary reason, right? The Italians had the Roman Empire, and Mussolini had this great national myth of we're restoring the Roman Empire, and then Hitler said, okay, we can do the same thing with Nordic or Teutonic, racial theory or something like that. But that's not what's needed, not some fictional goal or some fictional idea, but actual, precise, scientific, accurate explanation of the original source of everything and the original absolute truth, the supreme source of all energies. We're his energies, he's the energetic. By actual, persuasive, explanation and exposition, what do they say, expository writing. Now, Srila Prabhupada has established in the Srimad Bhagavatam, presented in English with full Vaishnava commentary, the ultimate explanation of God and his devotional service and how he's related with the world. An explanation which is really missing even in other world religions, or it's not complete. And sometimes I was talking the other day to a Muslim man, and so there's a common sort of misunderstanding by Western people that the Judeo-Christian, Islamic, Abrahamic tradition was like more advanced than any other tradition in the world because they invented monotheism. This is their idea. That, until then, people all worshipped, one deity or another deity, and the deities of their tribe fought against the deities of somebody else's tribe. But they had the idea that there's one God and he's supreme and he's infinite and transcendental, and nobody else had that idea. But the Upanishads, the Vedas are just as old as the Old Testament and also establish this monistic idea. But it's not an impersonal idea, and neither is it theirs. They have their Jehovah, he's actually gets angry and jealous and so forth. And similarly, in the Vedic tradition is not really an impersonal idea. It embraces the impersonal. Krishna being everything, being really infinite, can be impersonal as well as personal. To say that he can't be personal is to limit him. The Orthodox mullahs think if you even try to make a representation of God, in a painting or something like that, then you're insulting him, insulting his infinity and transcendence, because he's not mundane at all. So how can he be present in mundane? And other groups, Sufis and things, say, no, God is immanent, he's present everywhere, we can see him in all his creation and so forth. But he's both. Even though he's in his creation, he never becomes influenced. He's not like us. When we become in contact with material nature and try to exploit it and control it, then we become under its control. That's the illusion. We think I'm controlling material nature. But actually we're losing our freedom. We're identifying with a body that is subject to time and decay, and we lose our freedom. Actual spiritual life is complete freedom. That's the freedom we're always dying for, is our real spiritual life of freedom. But freedom doesn't mean whimsically doing whatever our mind tells us to do. That's not even freedom. That's material nature. Mind, intelligence, these are also elements. That was the previous verse we didn't read. Bhumir apo nalo vayu kangmano buddhirevacha ahankara ityang me bina prakritir ashtadha. 8 elements. The inferior nature is composed of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Those are the gross elements. Although ether is hardly gross, it's like space, the container that activity happens in. And mind, intelligence, ego is subtle nature. We can't see it with our senses. Our senses can see. Our eyes see form, our hearing hears sound, our taste tastes flavor, our smell smells aroma, and our tactile sense feels texture, touching things. So those are the 5 sense objects. All these things are explained in Vedic literature, right? The philosophy is laid out. Now in the last, 400 years, really in the 17th century, Galileo and René Descartes started saying, well, we should understand matter and mind as two different things, and we'll understand matter in terms of properties that can be measured in terms of motion, extension, things that have mathematical relationships to one another, and that's real knowledge. And it's started us down this road of materialism by the time of Laplace, right? I think he died in 1825 or something like that. But he took the calculus that Newton had invented calculus, but he really hadn't. He explained mechanics in terms of geometry in a way that wasn't. He didn't use his own technique to thoroughly, in his public, Principia, to explain things. Laplace really showed how it could be explained more. And Newton, in the 17th century, Newton and Leibniz had a great rivalry, and they argued over whose explanation of the universe was better, and they each accused each other that your explanation of the universe is tacitly atheistic, but mine isn't. And one of Newton's arguments was that if we take the principle of universal gravitation and we see the solar system as really operating in terms of universal gravitation, the mass of planets attracting each other and moving because of that attraction, it will eventually collapse and fall into one another. But God has to intervene, and sort of like the watchmaker who has to rewind the clock and so forth. So Laplace worked on that, 150 years later, and was saying he no longer needed that. And so he had this sort of deterministic view, which now is rejected by modern physics, that if someone had a big enough intelligence to know where every particle of matter was, and what its motion was, and what its mass was, its moment, and so forth, and could analyze it all, if they had a big enough brain to know not only what everything was, but actually how it was all interacting, based on the simple laws of nature that they were understanding through modern science. And it's not hardly modern anymore. That was before, chemistry really was, and before field theory, and it was like around 1800. But he said, if you could do that, then you could know all of past, present, and future. Right? You could predict from the beginning of the universe to the end of the universe everything that would happen, every word that anyone would speak, every interaction, who would get married, who would have children, anything that would happen. In other words, there was really no need for any spiritual explanation, for any... you have to go, or? So, how do you go? So this is this... A lot of people are influenced by this material conception that the laws of nature that we know about are really just the laws of mechanics, of the interaction of matter and energy. And by energy they don't mean soul. By energy they mean that which moves matter. Of course, it's really soul that moves matter. Without soul, matter doesn't move. We just read that. But soul is conscious. Soul is alive. Soul is the fundamental principle. And Krishna says, Ya yedam dharyate jagat. It's the soul, the souls in the world, the jiva bhutas, who are actually using the material energy in the universe and exploiting it, interacting with it. And without those souls, it won't happen. This idea that just matter is making our hearts beat and our diaphragm, breathe in and out constantly until we die, is a wrong theory. And the actual theory is that because there's a soul present in the body, it acts alive. And when the soul leaves the body, then the same chemicals are there, but it no longer acts. And it's not... You can't say, well, this is they used to talk about, well, we can make a perpetual motion machine. They would try to arrange things in such a way that if you set something moving, it would keep moving forever and not stop. And if you could really do that, and then maybe if you could even make it put out a little energy, then you would solve the energy crisis. You could have machines that could be generating energy by themselves, just by the way that they were mechanically designed. But later they came to discover that there's a law of conservation of energy, and it's impossible to make such a machine. But our human bodies are moving for 100 years, right? They're more than just a machine. They're more than just some complex machine that, somehow moves and thinks and talks and conceives of things, desires things, composes poetry and music and all that, and religion and worships God and all this thing. It's actually the soul. The soul is the active principle in the universe. And matter, by its very nature, is inert. It's dull. It makes everything difficult. So we have to ask these questions. Hare Krishna, welcome. We have to, right? In Western culture, Socrates was supposed to have said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." Right? We should be curious. What am I? What am I doing here? Why is it difficult to accomplish things? I try to, right? The hurrier I go, the behinder I get. I try to accomplish my goals, but I always find obstacles and frustration. That's because we're in the material atmosphere. It's the nature of material energy is that it frustrates us. And because we have material goals, we're acting in the material atmosphere. If we can turn our goals to transcendental goals, then we can associate with the spiritual atmosphere and we can engage in the spiritual activity, which is completely free. And our saintly Prahlad Maharaj teaches us that spiritual activity consists of 9 processes: hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping the lotus feet, worshipping the deity, offering prayers, becoming a servant, becoming a friend, Hare Krishna, and giving up everything for the Supreme Lord. So this chapter 7 is beginning of, Srila Prabhupada says several times in the purports in Bhagavad Gita that the Bhagavad Gita is organized in 3 sections. First 6 chapters deal mostly with first of all, the introduction, the understanding of the distinction between spirit and matter, and the understanding of karma, and how it binds, and how one can become liberated by sacrifice in transcendental knowledge, and ultimately cessation of material activities, including mental activities. And at the end, he says that of the greatest yoga, yogi namapi sarvesham, madgatenantaratmana shradhavan bhajate yomam samayuktatamo mata. The one who's most perfect in yoga is my devotee, who has faith in me, who has bhakti. The middle 6 chapters deal with this principle of bhakti most exclusively. And this 7th chapter, Krishna is beginning to explain. Maya sakta manak partha yogam yunjan madashraya asangshayang samagrang mang yata gyasasi tachchunu. By fixing your mind on me in full yoga, then you can know me without doubt. And you can know jnanang tehang savijnanam. You can know everything with transcendental knowledge and also experience, realization, direct understanding. Not just theoretical, but direct understanding. And he begins by explaining what is the material energy, the material elements. That's one of his energies. It's prakriti, one kind of prakriti. And that is fire, water, air, earth, ether. And also the subtle energy which we can't experience with our knowledge-acquiring senses, mind, intelligence, ego. But it's still material because it's temporary and still acts like matter. It covers and restrains us, constrains us from our spiritual activity. In other words, there's spiritual intelligence and spiritual mind of those who are engaged in devotional service. But Krishna is talking here about material mind, material intelligence, material ego. They're coverings that are actually inert, dull, material things. They have no life of their own, but they're elements by which the embodied soul is covered. And then he's saying now that there's another prakriti. Some philosophers talk about the soul as Purusha, or, the goal is to understand and to purify the intelligence so that you can actually see the Purusha and stuff. But actually in Krishna's philosophy in Bhagavad Gita, although he says that the soul in the Jiva Bhuta, in the 13th chapter, right, he says, Purusha prakritisto hi bhunkte prakriti jan gunan. The soul is acting like a Purusha situated in matter, situated in apara prakriti, inferior prakriti. But actually here he's describing that these Jiva Bhuta souls are also prakriti. They're his. Prakriting vidhi me param. They're he says they're my energy, and they're my superior energy. They have, as we were discussing before, they have Krishna's qualities. Sat Chit Ananda, these higher qualities. They're eternal. They're full of consciousness, and they're full of joy. Whereas material energy, fire, earth, ether, they're inert. They're impersonal. They're dull. They don't have any life of their own or any intention or desire of their own. But Krishna himself, he's the origin of both, the material energy and the spiritual energy. He's the energetic. So these are his energies, and they're all under his control. And neither of these energies are independent. They can't act independently of Krishna. So this is philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. Those who say, Srila Prabhupada points out, those who say that the soul is really in all respects one with the Supreme are not really following the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, actually. Sometimes they twist it in different ways to try to make that come out. But the actual philosophy is that Krishna is a person. He has intention, he has desire, he is spiritual, he has goals, ambitions. He loves his devotees, right? He says that ahang sachamamapriya, that the jnani who surrendered to Krishna and understands that Krishna is everything and he doesn't have any other ambition but to please Krishna, is very dear to Krishna, and Krishna is very dear to him also. There's an interaction. His goals, his desires are not at all material. He's not like us. He doesn't have material goals. Kamasya nendriya pritir labho jiveta yavata jivasya tattva jigyasa narto yashcheha karma pihi. We shouldn't waste our life's energy. We shouldn't waste our ambition. We shouldn't waste our planning, our intelligence, and our activity for some material thing. But we should spend our energy to understand the absolute truth. Jivasya tattva jigyasa. We should be inquisitive. What is the absolute truth? The unexamined life is not worth living. Or in the Bible, Jesus says that if you build your house on a shifting foundation, it will fall down. Right? Abraham Lincoln said that also. A house divided against itself shall not long endure, something like that. So the shifting foundation is the material world. If we're thinking that our shelter, that our success will be something material, then right from the beginning we're making a mistake, because everything material doesn't endure. It has a beginning and an end. So we should have our goal something that's transcendental, pleasing Krishna. And that is something lasting. That will, by associating with Krishna through bhakti yoga, through hearing about Krishna, discussing his teachings in Bhagavad Gita, doing his work, he wants us to. Srila Prabhupada said, we were talking about this earlier, the Srimad Bhagavatam is presented in English with a Vaishnava commentary for the first time. It fully explains the cream of Vedic knowledge, and is the great benediction for the world. It will stop the problem of this age of Kali, which is that people don't know what the goal of life is. And they don't know, Natevaduk Swartakatim hi Vishnu. And they don't know how to work cooperatively to achieve that goal. And therefore they're quarreling over all kinds of things. But when they get the real exposition of what Krishna is, how Krishna is the center of everything, the cynosure of all saintly persons' attention, then there can be peace and prosperity. And this is the highest welfare work. So our goal, our mission, Srila Prabhupada has already given us the books. We're to study them, read them, learn them, and make them the New York Times #1 bestseller, you know. Everyone should be talking about this book. This is a very special book. Most people will think, well, what does that have to do with, you know, that's some ancient Indian thing from some faraway time and place. What does it have to do? I'm a computer guy, I do computers or whatever, or I'm a law guy or a medicine guy, and I'm in the modern world, and that just seems like some arcane, obscure, esoteric, but it's not. It's very relevant to everything because it tells us what our goal is, who we are. Who are we? What are we doing here? Why are we suffering? Why, even though we have so many ambitions and goals and everything, why are we always being frustrated? Show me one person who's completely successful in life. The only person who's completely successful is the pure devotee of Krishna. Because even everything they do is for Krishna, and whatever is done for Krishna can't be thwarted. Wherever there's Krishna and Arjuna, there's victory, morality, power, and opulence. Know that for certain. So let's have some discussion now, and we have a long class on Wednesday nights. We go all the way until 8 o'clock, and it's right now not even 7. Huh? So we have plenty of time, and we can read some more verses and we can discuss more things. But is anything that I'm talking about so far standing out or inspiring you to discuss anything, or realizations?
You said souls are consuming the energy. But we always think that, it's the material body, like our actions, that is consuming the energy. So I was thinking...
What we think that what's consuming the energy?
Like, our actions, whatever we do, right? So that is consuming the energy, then soul. So, but in this verse, it says that soul is consuming the energy, right?
So the soul is situated in material nature. This is a very difference in the metaphysics of Bhagavad Gita from the metaphysics of Laplace and what I was talking about earlier from the materialistic viewpoint. That the world exists for the use of spirit. Consciousness is primary, and spirit is secondary. The materialists now, they've gone so far. I don't want to criticize Laplace. I think he believed in God. He was a deist. He had, but he had this idea that he did. There's a famous story where he supposedly had given a copy of his book to Napoleon, the emperor, and Napoleon was told that he was able to explain the universe without the need of God, and Napoleon said something like, if everything is just happening based on material laws, then where's God in that picture? And he was supposed to have said, Sire, I don't have need of that hypothesis. And so it's taken as a great atheistic statement. But what he was probably more likely really saying, because the story was told secondhand by someone who was there, was that he, like I had explained before, that he had gotten rid of the Newtonian idea that God has to actually readjust the solar system or else it will collapse. He wasn't. I don't mean to say that he was a complete atheist. But that deterministic idea that knowledge means understanding how matter interacts with other matter, and if we really understand that, there's no real place of emotion, values, feeling, internal experience, of conscious experience. That idea has taken hold in philosophy, so much so. In philosophy of mind, there's behaviorism, there's reductionism, a lot of the philosophers, you'll go in your university, they're naturalists. They don't believe in anything outside of these laws of nature. And what they say is that consciousness is, sometimes they use the word causally emergent, or an epiphenomenon, by which they mean to say nothing of that internal conscious experience actually does anything in the world. It doesn't actually influence anything. So we may think, oh, because I want to get rich and I go and I work hard and I build a big skyscraper and, or something, that I've done that. But they're really saying at bottom, it looks like you've done that because, that's our illusion, but reality is that, chemistry did that. The laws of physics and chemistry put together made you, those ambitions that you had were really something going on in your nervous system based on chemical reactions. So that's that material principle that, that consciousness doesn't do anything in the world. But that's actually the opposite of what Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying that matter is inert, and without the principle of para-prakriti, superior energy, matter won't do anything. And when and we see this practically. When the soul leaves the body stops acting. For 100 years, the heart is beating constantly. The breath is coming in and out constantly. Hair is growing and sweat is coming and food is being digested. All these activities are taking place in the body. And then when the soul leaves, the body again becomes inert. It just becomes a lump of matter to be taken out with the trash, or burned or buried or eaten by animals. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, they say. So when Krishna says, yayedham dharyate jagat, that the souls are exploiting the world, what he's saying, the world exists for the purpose of matter. And therefore we can understand that the whole theory that, life exists on earth by some rare, strange accident, but if we go into outer space, we'll find, maybe there's life on some other planet, but, we don't know of any. Probably everything is just cold and dead, and there's no consciousness, and there's no living beings out there. That's the speculation of the materialistic viewpoint, based on a materialistic prejudice. And yeah, they may say, well, show me, we only believe in things that we have evidence for, and you can't show me the objective. They're positivists. You have to be able to show me an empirical, piece of evidence of some life on outer planet. But a priori, we can just understand that the world, material world, exists for souls. Not that souls arise out of some combination of matter accidentally, rarely, maybe sometimes if lightning strikes a proto-organic soup or something like that, and then life comes to be. No, life exists eternally, and the material world is sometimes created and destroyed in order to provide a place for conditioned souls to act out the illusory pastime, not pastime even, pastime is not the right word, because pastimes are enjoyable, but the illusory ignorant activity of trying to exploit nature. And so yes, the material world exists for the exploit, the material elements are being exploited by and utilized by souls, but they shouldn't be exploited selfishly. They should be actually engaged in sacrifice to please Krishna. That's the real purpose of the creation it's two purposes. One is it's an opportunity for conditioned living entities to degrade themselves by forgetting Krishna, because Krishna gives them that freedom and that opportunity. But the real inner purpose, the devotees know that Krishna's real desire is that they won't be fools. They'll wake up, they'll stop this trying to become the center of the universe, trying to compete with him, trying to be the enjoyers of his energy, and realize that it's his energy, and learn how to properly offer it to him. And offer their actions, their words, their thoughts, and become again engaged God consciousness as spiritual energy, right? As to do what the actual spiritual energy does. We're identifying with matter because we have material goals, and then we're always being defeated. But if we have spiritual goals, what's the verse? Padang padang yad vipadang natesham samashrita ye padapallava plavam mahat padam punya yasho murarihi bhavam budhir vatsa padang parang padam padang padang yad vipadang natesham. It says, for those who take shelter of the boat of devotional service, samashrita ye padapallava plavam mahat padang punya yasho murari, of the killer of the Mora demon whose fame is auspicious, pious. Then the ocean of material emotions and suffering, material existence, becomes shrunken to a small footprint. If you have a boat, even if you have a little rowboat, if you have to cross a big lake, or what to speak of a giant Pacific Ocean, it's still a big endeavor. But that ocean becomes, so they've taken shelter of the right boat, and the ocean becomes very small also, so that they can easily cross over it, because their goal is not in the material world where there's danger at every step. Their goal is to satisfy Krishna. That's our real eternal goal. That's our real identity. Our real identity is that's who we are. We're servants of Krishna. Krishnera Nityadas. Jivera Swarup hoy. Krishnera Nityadas. Swarup means one's actual form, one's actual original identity. And Tatastha Lakshana means something that changes, right? Like on the shore, sometimes it's covered with water, sometimes it's covered with, the water recedes and there's land, it's changing. But your Swarup is something that's eternal and doesn't change. And what is that Swarup of the Jiva? It's Krishnera Nitya Das, that we're the servant of Krishna. That's our actual identity. But because we're neglecting and forgetting that identity, we're experiencing birth and death, and suffering and pain. And to remember that identity, by all of us here together associating with faithful devotees and talking about Bhagavad Gita, we're becoming again spiritualized. Just like if you put an iron in a fire, the iron, which is cold and it's not like fire at all, but when you stick it in fire, it becomes like fire. It turns red and then it turns bright yellow, white. And if you take it out, it can burn things just like a fire can. So similarly, when we're connected to Krishna, then we become His instrument and we become conduits of His power and we become conduits of His transcendental energy. And when we talk about Krishna, people can hear us because we're empowered. Because to the extent that our intelligence and mind and activity and everything is absorbed in Krishna, then we become just like Krishna. And when we talk to people, they have an experience that they feel very happy. They feel something that they've been missing. Because their material happiness, everybody's seeking it, but it doesn't really satisfy. It's only temporary. It doesn't do away with material problems, which are right around the corner. Sometimes it's described like if you have some nice sweet rice, but you mix it with sand. You try to taste the sweet rice, but there's this gritty sand in there too, so it's not enjoyable. Or there was a poet, Vidyapati, who said that if you're dying of thirst in the desert, you need water. But if someone says, okay, here's one drop of water, then you have water. It's not satisfying, that it won't quench your thirst, it's just a little drop. So material happiness is like that. And spiritual happiness is the nectar for which we're always anxious. Spiritual happiness really satisfies. Yenatma suprasidati. It's what can really satisfy the soul. That happiness is experienced in pure, unrestrained, unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service. When we don't have any, some people are pious people and they worship Krishna because they think, I'm suffering, I'm poor, and Krishna is great, and if I can do something, make a vow to him and please him, he'll give me what I need. And that's okay. That's, Krishna says, those are 4 kinds of pious people, they surrender to him, and those are some kind of people that surrender to him. But those who really unrestrainedly surrender to him because they love him, because they appreciate Krishna is everything, and I'm just insignificant. All I want to do is please Krishna, I'm totally in love with him. Then they experience a kind of happiness that's unlimited. And once you taste that happiness, you're hooked. You can't ever find that anywhere in the material world. And it doesn't come from being rich, it doesn't come from having a great chef cooking you the best gourmet food. It doesn't come from having a beautiful husband or wife who's always kind to you and sweet to you. All of those things it doesn't come from having enough money that you don't have to worry about the landlord wants his rent, or the tax collector is coming and I can't get enough and now I'm going to be in debt and I have to work extra hard to get more. But some people think, well, if all these are the things that are bothering me, and if I could solve all those things, these stopgap band-aids, then I would be happy. But you can't solve all those things. It's futile. It's nature of the material world. And so people say, oh, you Hare Krishnas are so pessimistic. You think that you're always talking about death. We have to die, we have to suffer, we have to get old. I don't want to think about that. I want to talk about something positive. No, we're talking about something that's very, very positive. You don't have to die, because you're a spirit soul. Jivera Swarup Hoy Krishnera Nitya Das. Nitya means eternal. You have eternal life. That's there. It's not just, there's one psychologist wrote a book called The Denial of Death. And he said that it was a Pulitzer Prize winning book, that all of human culture, literature, religion, all of this stuff really came from this fundamental contradiction between our material existence as organic, physical, biological beings and our symbolic, psychological existence as people that think and are conscious and expect to be eternal. So we have to create a hero system in which we can transcend death and be eternal. And there's different kinds of, hero. I'm not doing justice to his book. It was actually a brilliant, thoughtful, atheistic philosophy. He actually recognized this is the problem of life. We're not eternal. We have to die. But because he's a thoroughly materialistic modern person, he had to explain it as if religion was some kind of a mythological technique that solved some problems for us, and we were dependent on it and stuff, and we couldn't face the real reality that. Hare Krishna, welcome. So, but that's the actual fact, that we really are spiritual beings, but we're experiencing material existence because of our engagement in trying to exploit material nature, to answer your question. So that's what Krishna is saying, that the souls in this world, Jiva Bhuta, they're conditioned souls, and they're thinking that their happiness is available by controlling material nature. And their goals and ambitions and plans and activities are all directed toward making some material arrangement. If I get a nice house, if I get a better job, a promotion, or if I win the lottery and I can put all that money in the bank, and then they dream about what will happen and how life will be like. Or if I can go to the heavenly planets, I can perform sacrifices and go to live in the planet of Indra. Krishna says people can do that, right? He says that those who follow the 3 Vedas and they perform sacrifices, drink soma, rasa, Trividyamang somapa putapapa Yagyarishvar svargating prartayante, because they desire to go to Svarga Lokam. Te punyam asadya surendra lokam bunjya bhogan, bunjya, I don't remember, Vishayan, tatte punkte Svarga Lokang Vishalang, Kshine punye martya lokang vishanti. This is the point. Krishna is not recommending that. He's saying, yes, you can go to heaven of King Indra and enjoy happiness there also. But that's material too. Abrahma bhuvana loka punaravartino Arjuna. When your good karma is used up, that you accumulated, then you come back to the world of death. So what have you accomplished? Gata gata kama kama labhanti. You're just coming and going because you have material ambitions, material desires. So we should have our ambitions something higher than that. We have to learn how to become really free. Srila Prabhupada translates some words of Krishna as the regulative principles of freedom. The idea that to become free from the tyranny of our mind and senses, where we think this is me, I'm doing this, but it's really material nature dictating to us what we think we want, right? My body needs food and water and air to breathe and things, and I think that's what I want. But the soul doesn't need any of those things, actually. The soul just needs to please Krishna. So we have this material body and those material needs, and but if we learn to regulate our senses, Krishna doesn't say you stop breathing, you know. But he says do it in the right way, do it according to the regulation of Shastra. You can eat, you can sleep, you can have a family, you can have a career, all those things. He doesn't tell Arjuna. Arjuna in the beginning says, oh, if I take any step in any direction, I'll just do more harm than good. I would rather just sit down and die. Let the enemies come kill me and I won't even pick up my weapons. Or I'll go in the forest and become a hermit and I'll just beg for scraps of food like the sannyasis do. And Krishna said, no, get up, fight the battle, conquer, enjoy glory, be my instrument. I'm going to kill the people anyway, but I want you to do it. And but the point is that by doing what Krishna wants, then we are acting as spirit. It's not just enough to know we're not this body, we're spirit. We have to know how to act as spirit. And act as spirit means we have to know Krishna. Sometimes people say, Srila Prabhupada would say that, sometimes people say, right, Vivekananda, their group, they say, a lot of people, it's a famous slogan, service to man is service to God. And if God wants you to feed the poor or hungry or give clothing and things, those are fine things. If God wants you to do that, then it's service to God. But if that's not what God asks you to do and you do that anyway, it's not service to God. It's not like the man has become God. Yeah, God is everywhere. He's in everything. But we have to see Him in everything, not just say, since He's in everything, we don't care about Him anymore. We'll just concentrate on other things. People constantly tell me that because I go out and I sell books and I say, read about Krishna. And people say, oh, I already know all about that. You're Krishna, I'm Krishna, why do I have to read this book? I don't believe in books, I am Krishna. Krishna is that tree, Krishna is that star. They're right in a way, but they're completely wrong in the most important way. They haven't really understood Krishna. Yeah, the atheistic positivist says, show me. If there really is Krishna, then where is He? Right? Hiranyakashipu says, is He here in this pillar? And Prahlad Maharaj says, he's everywhere, He's in everything. Of course He's in the pillar. So then Hiranyakashipu punches the pillar, he draws his sword, he says, I'm going to kill you now. And they'll let him come out of the pillar and do anything to stop me. And he doesn't believe in it. And then he appears out of the pillar. But it's not that he is a pillar. It's that the pillar is a manifestation of his energy, and he can be anything. He can pretend to be a pillar, but then he can become a never-before-seen half-man, half-lion form that is beyond anything that Hiranyakashipu could imagine. He is always transcendental. He never becomes mundane. Even though everything that is in the mundane world, everything that's beautiful, auspicious, powerful, Srimad Urjitam Evava, is just a spark of his splendor, is a representation of him. If we are inspired to awe by anything, by any work of art, or work of music, or literature, or if we see something valuable there, whatever's valuable is Krishna. But it's not that Krishna has become some mundane poem or tree or something. Only God can make a tree. Poems are made by fools like me. Joyce Kilmer, right? Yes, Krishna is a tree because only God can make a tree. A tree, we were talking about perpetual motion machines before. There are trees that are thousands of years old, right? They say perpetual motion machines are impossible. Well, they are, because the tree will eventually die. But a tree is going on and acting. You may not be walking around and moving fast, but it's drawing up moisture and nutrients from the soil. It's growing branches and twigs and the leaves are falling off and coming back on again for thousands of years. Activity, motion is going on because of the presence of the soul. Matter doesn't do that by itself. Matter can't act in that wonderful way. You can't, the Srila Prabhupada would challenge that, all right, if the body is just a combination of chemicals, we'll give you a chemistry set. We'll give you a laboratory with all the chemicals. You can make, right, there's a famous novel, maybe a long short story or short novella called Frankenstein, right, where Mary Shelley, a doctor, was trying to go to the graveyard and find recently dead body parts and put them together and somehow or another with electricity to revitalize them and make them alive. But it's fiction. Nobody can really do it. Nobody has ever done it. Right now they're experimenting with cloning and in vitro fertilization, but they're always using the DNA and the parts from that come from some living being. Because the soul is primary and the matter is only created around to facilitate the activities of life. Life comes from life, not from matter. They can't breathe life into things. So let's have some discussion now. We have Shalabahu here. Harival, now we can really get... So did that answer your question, what Krishna means by yaye dhamdaryate jagat, that the material world and the material elements are existing for the purposes of soul and not the other way around? Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji, many interesting points you discussed. A couple of times you touched the point that it's important for us to dovetail our material activities or goals into spiritual activities and goals. So if you could shed some practical tips or elaborate more on this, on our daily life, living in the material world, because that's a dilemma that, do we know the knowledge that you mentioned, but how to act on that?
So rule number 1, chant Hare Krishna. Krishna has invested all of his potencies in his holy names, and for this age of Kali, this is a very easy way to approach him. That by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, the entire atmosphere becomes spiritualized, material thoughts and concerns get driven away, and we can concentrate on Krishna, and our consciousness can become focused on Krishna. So we should chant Hare Krishna as much as possible. When Srila Prabhupada made his initiated disciples vow to chant a minimum of 16 rounds every day, he pointed out that's a minimum. It doesn't mean you can't chant more. And a lot of devotees, chant 32 on Ekadashi, or they have different vows. I know Vaishasika chants 64 every day during Kartik, he goes to Holy Dham and chants 64 rounds a day, and a lot of devotees go with him and they chant 64 rounds a day. And then the rest of their time they read Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not they just chant and then they go play video games or something like that. No, then the rest of the day they read Srimad Bhagavatam and discuss Srimad Bhagavatam together. This is what human life is really for. Most of us get caught up that we have to earn money and we have to do this and we have to do that. But if we could stop everything else and if we could just facilitate chanting Hare Krishna, our life would be perfect. And the great examples like Namacharya Haridas Thakur did nothing else but sit and chant Hare Krishna. We can't do that, and we can't imitate that, and Prabhupada didn't ask us to do that. He wanted us to use our time also to encourage people to, we've got all these books, make them bestsellers, to help read them, tell people why you like them, tell people what's so important about them, get other people to read them, give it word of mouth, write an essay, publish it in the New York Review of Books, publish it in the, whatever the magazines, the Harper's and Atlantic, and, people have a whole industry, right? They have talk shows and comedy shows, The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and every night someone comes on and he interviews someone. Usually it's somebody who wrote a book, because that's part of how book publishers market books. Or they're acting in a movie or something like that, and it's how it gets people, you're driving in your car and you hear Terry Gross with Fresh Air says, she starts talking to the director of, Avatar or Titanic or something like that. And then you think, I didn't see that movie, I should see it. And then you go and rent it, or I didn't read that book. It sounds like an interesting book. It has some interesting ideas. I better go read it. So we should be pervading the culture with Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita and Bhagavad Gita, at least Bhagavad Gita. So tomorrow we have a HOA convention in San Jose. Some of us are going. I think most of the Asian American hotel owners in the San Jose area already have Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, in their nightstand desk drawers. But those who don't, they should have it. Or at least they should order it, and if they can't pay for it, we'll pay for it eventually, and we'll get them to them, because these should be the best sellers. These should be the books that everyone reads and gets inspired by, gets attracted to, and reads. I may have, Dheeraj, I may have gotten off of the topic. I forgot. Practical examples. So the first practical example is chant Hare Krishna. But if we want to chant Hare Krishna well, then we have to become suchi. So we should avoid the four sinful activities: meat eating, intoxication, gambling, and illicit sex. Live a regulated life, and engage in deity worship. Actually, Nectar of Devotion has 5 very powerful things. Chant Hare Krishna, associate with devotees, read Srimad Bhagavatam, worship the deities, live in a holy place. So a lot of us can't go live in Mathura, right? It's far away, and we have other things going on here. But if we worship the deity in our home, our family is engaged in worshiping and chanting together, and our focus of attention is Krishna consciousness, then our own home can be a holy place also. And temples in ISKCON are holy places where we come and we talk about Krishna consciousness with other devotees. So we accomplish all that in the temple. We're discussing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, we're worshiping Krishna, we're chanting Hare Krishna, worshiping the deities, and associating with the devotees. But the first important thing is to chant Hare Krishna. And if we chant Hare Krishna, then we'll develop a desire to chant well, without offenses. And to do that, we should get initiated and become second initiated brahmanas, become regulated, become suchi. Then, when we're on the platform of Brahmabhuta, then real bhakti begins from that platform. Then it becomes really substantial, right? Brahmabhuta prasanatmana shochati nakangshati samak sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktir labhate param. Bhakti is higher than Brahmabhuta. Or Bhakti exists in the Brahmabhuta atmosphere, but it's actually more than just no longer identifying with matter, but it is the positive side of what is our relationship with Krishna. And the chanting Hare Krishna starts from the very beginning. There's no hard and fast rules. You don't have to be initiated to chant Hare Krishna. You don't have to be a brahmana. You don't have to be, born in a certain family or even a certain nationality or religion or anything. Just chant Hare Krishna. You'll like it. See, it will make your life sublime. It reaches out. The holy name of Krishna is so merciful. Many mantras you have to be pure before you can recite a mantra effectively. That, in the Mahabharata, people learn how to shoot weapons with mantras. You could shoot an arrow and direct it to go somewhere just with a mantra. Or you could make it do something amazing with a mantra if you know the science. But that's material science. It's subtle material science, but it's a material science. Chanting the holy names of Krishna is transcendental science. It's superior to that. And it's effective even if you don't even know the first thing. But to do it really well, it's the highest thing. That devotees in the spiritual world are all chanting Hare Krishna. Every word is a song, every gait is a dance. The water is like nectar, all the cows are Sarabi cows, all the buildings are made with Chintamani gems. And the talking is everyone's talking about Krishna. Mother Yashoda is singing all day about the activities of Krishna, thinking when will he get back from taking the calves out to pasture. So those are the practical tips. And we have to have balance in our lives. Most of us can't just give up our jobs and move into the Hare Krishna temple and chant and work hard in the Hare Krishna temple every day. Used to be, when I joined the movement, that was what was expected of devotees. If you don't do that, if you don't live in the temple, you're a fellow traveler, but you're not one of us, you're not really a serious devotee. At least that was maybe it was a faulty mentality. I'm sure that some of the people that were living outside and worshiping Krishna and coming and supporting with donations and things were more advanced devotees than any of us were, and we didn't last in the temple or whatever. But that was the, if you're really serious, you won't do anything else. Cash out your bank account, and, give it to the BBT, let them print books, and you're just going to serve Krishna. And, that was our mentality. You have to do that. But we don't have to do that. And if you have a family, you can't do that. If you have children, they have needs. They're your responsibility. One time, one lady wrote to Srila Prabhupada, one of his young girl disciples. She had a little baby. And she said, I'm so pleased about serving you, Srila Prabhupada. I just want to go on book distribution. Can I give my baby to somebody else so that, I don't have to feed and care for the baby, and I'll just go on book distribution? And he said no. He said, your deity, or she wanted to do more deity worship. And I have to spend all this time with my baby. I want to be on the altar dressing Krishna and offering things to him. No, your deity is your baby. He said, if you must, when your baby is 5 years old, then I'll take care of your baby. These babies are important. They're supposed to be given an opportunity. They've been given to you to give an opportunity to become devotees, to live as devotees, and to be guided properly so that they can be happy and live as devotees. So he didn't like very much the idea that the woman had no affection for her child and didn't want to care for her child. She just wanted to do devotional service. No, that's also devotional service, in a way. It should be devotional service to please Krishna. Carrots are good for our eyes, but if you put carrots in your eyes, it doesn't work. You have to eat them carrots. So it's not that we just, if we just love our family and work really hard and try to support our family and forget about Krishna, that's as good as, Madhava Seva is Madhava Seva. It doesn't work like that. One time Prabhupada, he was very humorous, if you listen to Prabhupada's tapes, he had this transcendental sense of humor. And he said, it's not like, he said, bhakti means for Krishna, not that you say, oh, I have very much bhakti for my wife, I love her very much, I cook for her, if she's not with me, I go mad. So he's describing how devotees are with Krishna. You can't just say, well, I'll do the same thing with my family. No. But you have duties, responsibilities in the world that you do take care of nicely for Krishna. When Raghunath Das Goswami kept wanting to run away and follow Lord Chaitanya, at first Lord Chaitanya said, no, don't be a crazy fellow. Take care of your responsibilities. You have things to do for your family. You have to hanker to be able to actually live purely for Krishna. You have to actually be qualified. You have to get that mercy that you're able to do that. And until you get that, you won't be able to stay. And then it will become, people will look at the Hare Krishnas and they'll think, oh, they're irresponsible people. Well, they're going to think that anyway. Even if they really are pure devotees, people will think, oh, they're irresponsible people. We're all building skyscrapers and they live in little grass huts. But we don't. We're building a skyscraper in Mayapur, a big giant temple, to attract people's attention. Actually, Prabhupada, when he was there in the Mayapur project early on with some devotees, and they had a little place with no walls and with a thatched roof and a beaten earth floor, and they were sitting there chanting, and he said, we would be happy just like this. We could read Krishna book and talk about and chant Hare Krishna and live like this. But because our mission is to attract everyone in the world, people in the mode of passion, people who want to see big accomplishments, so we have to do big things. Sometimes he would tell us, what's the use of your being Americans if you don't do anything wonderful? People expect Americans build skyscrapers, why? What's the point if you just don't do anything wonderful? You have to do some big thing that attracts everyone. Then people will become interested in reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can organize our lives in such a way that even though we're taking care of our responsibilities and we're not shirking them and neglecting them, it doesn't become our consuming passion. It's not what we live for. We have something to really live for. It's the time when we chant in the morning, the time that we can be with Krishna in the evening and go to the Sundar Arati and sing Jayo Arati Ko Shobha, Jayo Jayo Gora Chandra. So that's the life of a devotee. Srila Prabhupada described as a ISKCON sandwich. In the morning, we rise early, we bathe, we chant 16 rounds, we have Srimad Bhagavatam class, worship the deities, greeting the deities, take a little prasadam, and then we go out and do our service during the day. We may be book distributors, we may be working as accountants in the temple treasury, or we may be, administrators. That's a very hard service to be an administrator of a temple. All the devotees headstrong devotees are quarreling. It has to be like this, no, it has to be like that, and you're stuck in the middle trying to, you have to make a decision and somebody's going to be mad at you. Or, you may be a book distributor, you may be a pujari, you may be a cook or a cleaner, or working in media, advertising, putting together a newsletter to circulate, an e-newsletter to circulate to 5,000 people a month in the Bay Area about the activities of ISKCON of Silicon Valley. Organizing things for serving, helping the book publication activities. Or you may have a job. Now, I'm a lawyer. Right now I have an appellate brief due on May 27th, opposition to demur due on May 29th. I have a mediation brief that I really wanted to do as a summary judgment motion and show the judge this is the summary judgment motion that we're going to win if they don't just go away and give up their I have all these obligations, and people are constantly asking me to do more and more things, and it's tough to organize time-wise and things. But that the ISKCON sandwiches, then in the nighttime, after you did all those kind of activities, you come back and you shower and you put on tilak and you go worship the deity and sing and have Bhagavad Gita class. That's the sandwich. Morning program, evening program. And then you go to sleep at night. Srila Prabhupada described this even in village life, that people would wake up in the morning and they'd go discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, and then they would go work in the fields and stuff, and then they'd come home and they'd discuss Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita, and they'd go to sleep at night dreaming about Krishna and wake up in the morning and start over again. That's the sandwich idea, that you get a strong morning program, a strong evening program, and then your life starts to rotate in cycles of Krishna. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, always serve the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam means the book Bhagavat, it means the person Bhagavat, it means Krishna. But how do you always serve? Does it mean that you have to give up your job? No. But if you regularly serve every morning, that becomes always. It becomes a lifestyle that, you chant your japa in the morning, and if you behave well all day and you don't get distracted and you focus and you concentrate, you'll find that your japa is good the next day. And you find that everything you do during the day, you start to do so that you'll chant good japa. And some mornings you just can't concentrate and you're chanting and you're not happy and you're thinking about other things, you're not listening to the holy name. And then it's not, it's difficult. But other mornings you're thinking, wow, this is the best thing. Chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Rupa Goswami says when he chants, he wishes he had millions of tongues and millions of ears. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of the heart, it renders all the senses inert. And he sings these prayers about the holy name. We used to sing those prayers of Rupa Goswami, Namashtakam, and other prayers. So that's the goal of chanting. Someone was asking, what is it like, Prabhupada, to chant correctly? And Prabhupada said, it would be like this. Why only 16 rounds? Why not 1,000? Why can't I chant 1,000 rounds? I don't ever want to stop. But we can have a lifestyle that every morning we look forward to the next morning. We want to do everything well. We want to get to bed at a good time so that we're not tired all day, and we can get up and have a very good morning program. And then we look forward to our time with Krishna. It's who we live for. It's what we live for. And we can organize our lives in such a way. What do they say? Some people live to eat and some people eat to live. So similarly, some people, they work so they can be with Krishna. And other people, pray to Krishna to make them have success in their work or something like that. I mean, I'm sure we could figure out a similar saying. But that's the idea. That it becomes a transformation. That if we have a regulated lifestyle where we have a good morning and evening program, we have a good morning program and we get absorbed in transcendental energy. Oh, Sham is here. Haribol. Then it's like Srila Prabhupada says, it's like putting our shoes on in the morning. If you don't have your shoes on and you walk around outside, you'll step on a rock or a piece of glass and, but if you have your shoes on, nothing can bother you. And sometimes, there may be a big nail or something like that, but in general, nothing will bother you. Your shoes. So if you chant good rounds, you have a good morning program, then the difficulties of life during the day will roll. You can let it roll off you, because it's not me. I'm not this body. These are just temporary external concerns about the body, and I'm really the soul. And what I'm really doing is I'm trying to do my service as best as I can to please Krishna, and I'm not the controller of the results. My job is to concentrate and be an instrument for Krishna and do what I can, but I'm a spirit soul functioning in this material energy. And my real goal is that tomorrow morning I'll chant good japa. Right? That's what you live for. You live for those times. And soon it becomes that's your whole modus operandi, modus vivendi, your method of living is centered around Krishna. And then as you do that more and more, then you'll find that Krishna makes arrangements for you. Because he really does. He really is in control of everything, and he's really a person. And he can make an arrangement. Oh, this person has demonstrated that they really want to do nothing else but my service. I can give them a situation where they can just do my service. Otherwise, it's difficult. So we have to regulate and organize our lives. That's the practical side of it. We have a little more time. Any more discussion, or should I read the next verse? Next verse. Number 6. Whoa, my book went way off. Etad yonini bhutani sarvanityupadharaya ahang kritsnasya jagataha prabhavak pralayastata. All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. Purport. Everything that exists is a product of matter and spirit. Spirit is the basic field of creation, and matter is created by spirit. That's answering your question from earlier. What does it mean that the spirit is sustaining and exploiting and using the universe? Spirit is not created at a certain stage of material development. Rather, this material world is manifested only on the basis of spiritual energy. This material body is developed because spirit is present within matter. A child grows gradually to boyhood and then to manhood because that superior energy, spirit soul, is present. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation of the gigantic universe is developed because of the presence of Supersoul, Vishnu. Therefore, spirit and matter, which combine to manifest this gigantic universal form, are originally two energies of the Lord, and consequently the Lord is the original cause of everything. A fragmental part and parcel of the Lord, namely the living entity, may be the cause of a big skyscraper, a big factory, or even a big city, but he cannot be the cause of a big universe. The cause of the big universe is the big soul or the super soul, and Krishna, the Supreme, is the cause of both the big and small souls. Therefore, he is the original cause of all causes. This is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, Nityo Nityanang Chaitanas Chaitananam. There is one eternal among many eternals, and one consciousness among many consciousnesses. Eko bahunam yo vidadhati kaman. That one is satisfying the different desires of the many. So he's supplying, he's the soul of the whole universe. Just like we have a soul in our body that's illuminating our body. In the 13th chapter, Krishna says, just like the sun illuminates the universe, so the soul illuminates our body with consciousness. And similarly, just like our soul is illuminating our body, the super soul, Krishna, Vishnu, is the soul of the universe. Before he enters the universe, nothing can move. Then he enters the universe and everything becomes alive, just like a soul enters the body and the body becomes alive. It starts to grow. The soul enters the egg and it starts to split and becomes an embryo.
The best way to see that it is, Prabhuji, when we were small, I remember I was in the first grade and second grade, and then the body grow like this. It is gathered from here, the food I eat, but the grower really is inside, because I was small, and then like there's the same soul inside. The only thing is I accumulated this body from here, from this earth. What are the things I eat it. So what are the things I eat it and I get it, I can say this is mine, but I cannot say I am this, because I accumulated from outside. Same thing for our intelligence and the mind too, because of the situations around, the circumstances around the way I grow. That is what become my mind is designed and, displayed. So that is also product of here, but other than the mind and this body, the real, the grower or the producer or the sustainer within this. So I cannot clarify that this is me. I am more than this, other than this. This is, I get it from here, but the grower was inside. Whenever he leaves, this is nothing then.
Yeah, exactly. Krishna says in the second chapter that as the embodied soul passes from childhood to youth to old age, it's constantly changing. The body is changing. But the soul, which is not changing, it goes to another body at death. It continues to change bodies. But a self-realized soul, he's not disturbed by that. So yeah, I was talking before that the middle 6 chapters deal specifically with Krishna and Bhakti Yoga, his devotional service. And then again in chapter 13, Krishna starts talking about, and the last 6 chapters, it's very well organized. Bhagavad Gita is very beautifully organized. And it ends chapter 18. Chapter 2 is an introduction that kind of lays out the whole concept. Chapter 18 is a conclusion that recaps everything that's gone before and then gives a kind of a climax with Krishna's final instructions, and then a conclusion, a coda at the end, where Sanjaya talks to the king and says how great this Bhagavad Gita is and how he remembers that universal form he saw and his hair is standing on end, that great conversation, and one who listens to this conversation. So in chapter 13 begins the last 6 chapters, and Krishna talks more about it. It begins with, what is the field and the knower of the field. That everything that we see in the universe is a combination of these two things, like it says in this verse. There's the material field of activities, and then there's the soul, which is actually the knower. The soul is the conscious particle that can actually experience things. And the world around it, the field, is made for the purpose of the experiencer and not vice versa. That's only natural. It only makes common sense that we experience things and the world around us is made for us, not that somehow in a lifeless, accidental, chaotic, combination of dull things that have no desire, no intention, no plan, no intelligence, that somehow by combination these things arise, or at least what appears to be these things, because they're only, as we were talking earlier, you might not have been here, they're only causally emergent or epiphenomena. That's the theory of materialists, that somehow or another, even though we experience something as tasting salty or tasting like chocolate, there's one philosopher who says, try to describe the taste of chocolate. What is the taste of chocolate? What does it mean? That there's an internal quality there that can't be explained by saying, 0 and 1 bits or whatever. You can't just explain it because it has a character of experiencing it. And another one wrote an essay, what is it like to be a bat? And have that kind of sonar that a bat has. And, that we have an internal quality of actually feeling things, tasting things, experiencing things, and that's real.
Is that we're talking about the indriyas, the senses, right?
Well,
when you're
not just
tasting the chocolate, or you are seeing something beautiful, or you're hearing something, these are all the part of the indriyas, but
there's a person behind the senses. The senses are working for
yes.
a person, and so the senses are giving us sense data. So the modern field of cognitive studies, they're studying how do the senses work and what happens in the nervous system when people, experience and describe what, their consciousness. And there are optical illusions. If you shine a red light here and then a red light there, it looks like a light moved across, and things like, and they just study the details of all these things in connection with vision, hearing, but they still aren't getting at what is the soul, which is the person that actually experiences. They're thinking if we can know about the mechanism of what the biological machine does when we experience, then that's the project is that we can just say, well, that's what experience is. It's that wait, let me finish this idea. They're saying that consciousness just is brain activity or nervous activity. When a sea fiber fires, that means you experience pain, and that explains what pain is. But it doesn't explain the character of pain. But the whole nature of modern philosophy of nature is this kind of what they call the de-enchantment, the dichotomy between fact and values. They say values don't really belong, and they're not as substantial and real. And what becomes real is, atoms, molecules, charges, gravity, forces like that can be measured in a lab, whereas beauty and good and evil and those kind of things, they may be important. There's these arguments. The existentialists try to say, nevertheless, they're important, even though they're not real. They're important to us, and therefore we don't become totally immoral people by doing away with God and spirit in our metaphysics. That's an important. Jean-Paul Sartre and those guys feel it's important to defend that the atheistic position doesn't mean that you become an amoral and evil person. But you have to recognize and face the reality that your values are not really part of the furniture of the universe. They're something that that you have acquired separately, and you have to face that reality of your position. So anyway, these are important debates in modern philosophy, in the world of philosophy, that what is there really value in the world? And the Christians, Catholics, and have philosophers that argue, yes, there are values, and there is right and wrong, and kids should be taught that. There is objective things that and it shouldn't just be all relative, that it's right or wrong just because we decided or something like that. So these things they're philosophical concepts that have practical consequences, and it goes right down to this metaphysics. What is there in the world? There's matter, but there's also spirit, and spirit is of two kinds, right? There's the spiritual energetic, who's the source of both matter and spirit, and there's a spiritual energy which is superior to matter, but it's also his energy. It's not the energetic. And this is Bhagavad Gita 101. We should learn this 7th chapter. It's the beginning of the middle 6 chapters, and we should learn it very thoroughly and understand that what is Krishna, how he is mattak paratanang nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidang protang sutra manikina iva. That he's the ultimate truth, and everything is just like pearls are strung on a thread. He's the thread that holds everything together. He's the taste of water. The senses have their objects. The sense of taste has its object, flavor, and the associated material element of that is water. There's a whole actual science of that too. We have the periodic table of elements that we've put together, and we've learned that there's hydrogen and helium and lithium and carbon and so on, and they line up in different categories, and they relate in different ways, and there's this whole theory developed about that of atoms, and how at first that was just seen as theoretical, and then as science developed, everyone came to accept the reality that there really are atoms that have protons and neutrons and electrons and so forth. I read an interesting sort of biography of I was telling Dheeraj about it, of a Dutch physicist who was there in the early days of quantum physics and stuff, and he had his theories about his name was Henrik Casimir, and he had his theories about the development of science and things like that. But these are important. This Bhagavad Gita should be for the most intelligent people, for the leading philosophers and scientists and everything should understand this principle, that we are nervous about what's going to happen to me in the future. Will I be happy or will I be sad? Will I be pain or will I be pleasure? Will I be in pain or pleasure and things like that. And the science of how to make television screens and faster computers and things like that doesn't teach us how to become happy or what's going to happen to us in the future and all that. And it doesn't even admit that there are laws that affect what the soul is going to experience in future life. It doesn't even admit there's existence of the soul. It's not based on that kind of philosophy. So it requires a different approach, a different theory. But it's not trivial, or it's not just a matter for some believers and faith and things like that. It's, Srila Prabhupada insisted, no, this is actually factual. This is science. We have to establish this as the truth about the world. And it's truth that matters, because we do care about whether we're going to be happy in our next life or not, or later in this life or not. We care about that. But if we think that, it doesn't even dawn on us that there's anything besides trying to adjust the material situation, then we will inevitably we will have to fail. But if we understand that everything that we see is a combination of matter and spirit, and then we understand how that spirit, by associating with the modes of nature, as the last 6 chapters progress, Krishna describes what the 3 modes are and how they interact. Of course, he's been talking about the 3 modes earlier, but now in chapter 14 he really elucidates more. And in chapter 17 and 18, he talks about how these 3 modes, he talks about these modes of nature in terms of how they influence the soul. Everything is soul-centric in Vedic philosophy. How do things influence us? That's what's most important. Not how, ammonium is going to interact if you put some, sulfur in it or something like that. But what's my life? What's going to happen to my consciousness? What's going to happen to my experience if I act in different ways, or if I associate with different modes of nature? And how can I avoid associating with passion and ignorance? And so this is important scientific stuff that Krishna is discussing in Bhagavad Gita. But so far the world doesn't, we have to make the world see it, that it's not just, it's not, people put things in the category of religion nowadays, and they say, oh, that's religious. It's interesting if you're interested in that. They have this poll that they do. I don't know how often they do it, and I didn't really read the results exactly, but it's called the Pew, P-E-W poll. And they ask people Americans about their religious affiliations and so forth. And they recently did it. And surprise, surprise, more people are checking that they're not affiliated at all. The category none, N-O-N-E. Not nun, N-U-N. At first I thought, oh, more people are becoming nuns. That's good. No, that's not. Then they say more people are becoming nuns. They mean they're checking the box that, I don't identify as Christian, Jewish, Muslim. I don't identify as this category or that church or that. There's no movement, no ideology, no doctrine, no set of rituals and practices and prayers that I specifically associate with. And it may be because, they're turned off by organized religion, but it may also be that they just don't really care about anything besides dull matter anymore, a lot of them. And then there are also categories for people who say, I'm agnostic, I'm atheist, and people who are more actively that. But there's a big increase from the last time they did the poll, and you could look it up online. I didn't really read it, I just heard about it. But a big increase in the amount of people who said, oh, no, none, I'm not affiliated. So we want to make the numbers for, I'm Bhagavat. devotee, bhakti, yoga, devotee of Krishna, Hare Krishna. We want to make that increase a lot. Sometimes people are surprised, though, how many people say they're Hare Krishnas. Even kids that are, Western kids, not in Hindu families, may not come to Hare Krishna temples and stuff, but when they're asked what religion they are, sometimes they say Hare Krishna, and it's not just a joke, it's that's what attracted them. They saw some people chanting on the street, or they had an interaction with a book distributor. So that's important work, that when we're doing that. And that's really the easiest. I was talking before about how hard it is to be an administrator, temple president, or something like that. It's hard. But when you're just a book distributor, and there's nothing more direct than going to tell people, you should chant Hare Krishna. You should read these books. This is why I read these books. This is what fascinates me about them, and interacting with people and trying to find those, because not everybody's going to interact with you that way, but trying to find those people who are attracted and want to take the book and are willing to give up some of their hard-earned money for the book and want to ask you questions about it and things. That's really direct. That's your greatest ISKCON sandwich. You have a good morning program, and you have strong sadhana because it'll help you on book distribution. And then you do good on book distribution, it'll help your sadhana. It'll help if you do well on book distribution, you don't waste time, becoming distracted by something, having a long conversation with somebody that's not really productive. Then you'll find that, that evening and the next morning your sadhana is better, and it's just a cycle. You have to learn to make those cycles improve. Just like if you go to courses about, physical fitness or diet and exercise and all those things, they teach you that you can have positive self-talk and work in the right direction and improve, or negative self-talk and you can get off of your regime, your regimen. So sadhana is like that too. If you have the right regimen, you can turn, habits into lifestyle, into character, just like you can with physical fitness or some other program. Okay, so it's 8 o'clock. Hare Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.